So, welcome everyone. Today I have another Hive-Free celebration, and today I'm going to be chatting to Keval. Welcome, Keval.
Hi, yeah, good to be here.
Thank you so much. So, we're celebrating your Hive-Free journey, and what I really felt was useful in your story to share is the fact that, there are a lot of people in this chronic urticaria Facebook group that have had hives for many years. In fact, some of them have had hives in the past, and they did something that managed to reverse the hives. And then a couple of years later, the hives are back in full force and they don't know what to do anymore, or at least what they tried is not working anymore. And I remember that that's kind of your story. So why don't you share a little bit about where your journey started?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that my first bout of hives was in late 2020. Just sort of came out of nowhere. It was a fairly kind of stressful period in my life, but apart from that, it just sort of appeared one day and very quickly progressed to quite severe hives and angioedema as well. So my eyes would often swell up to such an extent that they would actually close. So I couldn't even see out of one of my eyes now and again. So yeah, it was a pretty horrible experience. I eventually ended up on a combination of medications through my doctor, which was fexofenadine, famotidine, and montelukast. And I was taking those medications, and they controlled the hives to some extent, but a lot of hives were also breaking through that medication, and I was suffering some side effects as well, like fatigue and gastrointestinal issues.
Mhm.
So yeah, my quality of life had just gone to zero. Prior to that, I was quite quite active, I guess. Had a social life, and was had my professional life as well in terms of like going into work and things. And yeah, all of that just kind of got ruined by these hives. So that first bout of hives lasted for about 1 year, and I tried so many different things to try and get rid of them. And eventually, I did stumble upon a guy called Anthony Williams who presents a sort of celery juice protocol, which involves drinking celery juice every morning. And he also has a lot of other advice around living a healthy lifestyle. So I started like looking into him, and eventually I bought a juicer and started juicing celery every morning alongside, cleaning up my diet. And I found that super helpful, and the hives very quickly disappeared. And I was hive free at that point, and by this point it was like late 2021. And then I just sort of continued to live my normal lifestyle for the next couple of years. I was still drinking celery juice regularly, but I'd say a lot of like previous bad habits kind of came back in terms of, eating sugary food, processed food, junk food, drinking caffeine and alcohol, and so on. And eventually in, yeah, May of this year, so May 2023, the hives returned. It was also quite a stressful period in my life again, similar to last time. This time it was a job change. And when the hives came back, I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely devastated that I had to be back in this position where yet again I was suffering with hives. So I went back on my previous medication, the famotidine, fexofenadine, and montelukast. But this time they appeared less effective at controlling the hives. So I still had multiple large breakouts, even angioedema, despite being on all these different antihistamines and tablets. So I immediately started thinking about diet again. So I cut out all the rubbish from my diet, but still it didn't really seem to help, even though I was, drinking lots of juices and smoothies and eating very clean. So eventually I went down to pretty much a pure juice diet. So it consisted 100% of juice. That's all I was eating. So it was I lost huge amounts of weight. And yeah, it was really difficult because, until you're in that position, you don't realize how much of life really is about
Mhm.
eating, whether it's
Absolutely.
eating with your colleagues, eating with your friends, eating with your family, everything revolves around eating.
Yeah.
So it was a super tricky place to be in. And yeah, it was just, in terms of like mental health and things, it was just really, really horrible. I just felt like the worst I felt in that sense. But it was the only thing that could control my hives. So when I
Mhm.
was on that pure juice diet alongside the tablets I was taking, it meant that I wouldn't get severe hives. But I knew that it
You were still
wasn't
breaking
really.
out, right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
when I ate something, I would instantly break out, and then I would still also get, smaller hives while I was juicing too. And so I reached a point where I was like, this isn't a sustainable way for me to live, really. And that's when I came across Murray. I came across, your Facebook page and sort of took it from there and signed up and joined the program.
So I
Um,
have another question because
sure.
when we met and we had a quick Zoom call and you told me you were on a juice diet, I realized, okay, this guy has really tried everything, and and that's what I
Yeah.
say a lot in my posts. Eventually, it's not about the food anymore; it's about
Mm,
what your body's doing with the food. Because anybody that was eating the way you were
yeah.
should have seen results, really, if
Yeah.
it was about the food. And I mean, just given some of your history and the fact that you were on the medications, the fact that you changed so much in your nutrition, and the fact that you had some stress, kind of pointed out to me there was more to the picture, and you probably needed to do gut work, which is what I tell a lot of people that have already changed their
Yeah.
their diets and gone on really strict, whether that be the low histamine diet or any other elimination diet, and you pretty much eliminated everything. So
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
So, okay, so when you found me and we had a chat, had you been working with any doctors at that point in time, and what had they recommended to you as the next step? Because you were pretty desperate by then.
Yeah, so I'd just been working with conventional sort of, your typical doctors that everybody goes to.
Mhm.
Um, and they had, yeah, they didn't really have any further recommendations. They wanted to refer me to see a specialist. And they sort of implied that the specialist would put me on Zola, which was like pretty much
Yeah,
the final option,
yeah,
because what I was taking was like the kind of max cocktail of antihistamines you could get, basically. So after that, the only option was Zola. And yeah, I guess that drove me towards signing up for your program as well, because that was something I was really keen to avoid. It, I guess for me personally, I just didn't want to, take an injection and sort of cover up the issue, because it didn't feel like a real solution. Not only was there a chance that it wouldn't work, there's also the issue that if it did work, it was probably just masking the underlying issues that were going on in my body rather than actually solving them.
yeah,
Um, so
absolutely.
yeah, that's why I signed up for the program.
Yeah, and I think you were in the position where a lot of people have come to me as well, with that last straw being Xolair. And when I look at the side effects, I'm afraid of
Yeah,
this. So I can imagine that most people want to avoid that. So it's great. Okay, so you've been through the program, and technically the program runs 90 days, but we've been working together since about what, August, I think,
I think so. Yeah.
around about August, and we're now in December, so 5 months, almost six, yeah, thereabouts. And so it took you a little bit longer. Were there any pivotal moments for you and any big takeaways in the work that we did during that time? So, what do you feel benefited you most? And there might be several things that you can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think upon joining the program, something that I sort of really valued was having a clear pathway. I think up to that point, I was just reading different things and just trying different things and chopping and changing my methods constantly, just trying to find a kind of quick solution. So I really valued kind of like the structured path of, you do this is how you eat, these are supplements you take for this period, and then this is how you do it for the next period. And having that structure really helped me. And I think, upon joining the program and starting the protocols, I did see a reduction in hives. And I was doing other things as well. Like I'd introduced mindfulness into my life. I started doing a daily meditation practice. But I did, in the first probably 2 to 3 months, I probably saw about a 75 to 80% reduction in my hives. And that was considering I had started introducing foods. So despite the fact I'd gone from a completely juice diet to now eating, I'd still seen a reduction in my hives. And yeah, I found the protocol useful to really bring me that structure. I think even within the dietary guidelines you had provided, I think I was eating sort of even more restricted than that. But
Yeah.
it was fine for me because when you go from just having juice,
You're
eating
grateful
anything
for any
felt
bit of
like
food you can have.
exactly, exactly. So it worked well. I was very disciplined with it, and I did see that reduction in hives. But I would say I sort of reached a point where I was struggling to get that last like 20% of hives I was still getting. And I was also not sort of too happy about the fact I was still taking prescription medication. I kind of felt like I was relying on the medication that the doctors were giving me, all these antihistamines. And I wanted to think about how I could start reducing that, but it was difficult because I was still getting hives here and there, so I felt like I needed it. And the kind of crucial moment came when I decided to go and get some blood work done. So when I went to get that blood work, they recommended that you need to be off all your antihistamines to get an accurate picture of the blood work, and you need to be off the antihistamines for 72 hours. So I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna drop these antihistamines and, my hives are gonna break out everywhere and it's gonna be horrible." And I even planned to like take time off work for those 72 hours because I thought it was gonna be crazy. But actually what ended up happening was that I stopped my antihistamines sort of cold turkey, and my hives didn't sort of materialize. I thought I was going to get loads of hives, and I didn't really get any. I went and got my blood test done, and the doctor said, you can go back to taking your antihistamines. But I thought, well, what? I guess why should I? Because the hives had sort of stopped. And yeah, since that day, I've not taken any antihistamines. I did have a couple of hives here and there, but in the last month or so, I've pretty much had none. And I've been opening up my diet as well. It's
Mhm.
getting wider and wider. I'm able to tolerate bits of gluten and dairy and so on. So yeah, I'd say that sort of blood test was the final crucial moment for me.
Yeah, I think it was a real pivotal moment because I remember you saying to me how afraid you were to go off the antihistamines.
Yeah,
And I guess the doctor saying you can't do these tests without coming off them was kind of the kick in the butt that you needed. But
exactly. Yeah.
brilliant, it panned out. And I'm not sure that it pans out for everybody that way, but it seems
Mm.
like the antihistamines by that time, you'd done so much groundwork on, the nutrition you'd been doing for ages, and you'd rebuilt the gut by that time, that coming off the antihistamines, by then the antihistamines were more of a burden than a help anyway.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. So when you came off them, you didn't have to detoxify antihistamines anymore. You could detoxify other things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so and in terms of that timeline, so you came off antihistamines and it was pretty much immediate that the relief was there, or that you didn't see a breakout in hives, and you had been seeing a bit of hives. How often in the time just before you came off the antihistamines?
Just before I came off the antihistamines, I think I was still getting like 2 to 3 a day,
Mhm,
of various sizes. But by that point, I had kind of significantly reduced instances of angioedema. So I wasn't getting that quite as much, but I was actually still getting that like once every fortnight, I'd say. And then I was getting like 2 to 3 kind of general hives a day. Not huge ones like I had before. I mean, I had points where like part of my stomach would just be like one giant hive, like really, really bad.
mhm.
So I wasn't getting them that bad. They were a lot smaller, but I was still getting them. And then, yeah, I stopped the medication, and it was almost instant that the hives went. I think I had a period after that of about 3 to 4 weeks where I'd notice occasional red patches, but they wouldn't form into hives, and the
Mhm.
red patches would very quickly disappear. Like previously, like if I had an actual hive, it would take 24 to 48 hours to go away. But these red patches would sort of appear, and then a few hours later they'd be gone.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of
Well,
how the timeline played out.
awesome. And you mentioned something that I think a lot of people are also worried about because when they hear you were on a juice diet, they think, "Oh, I can't do that anymore." Just like
Mm,
and then you say now, like a couple of months later, you were very strict for a long time and you were
yeah.
very, very diligent. And I really think that that supported you in becoming hive free in that space of time. But the good news is that you can now eat a varied diet. And you've even said, and I think this is what most people want to hear, will I be able to eat gluten and dairy? And so you haven't broken out. Is that what I understand? When you ate gluten and dairy, you were recently on a trip there and you had some gluten and dairy.
Yeah, yeah. So I was recently on holiday. It was in Austria. Didn't have any sort of hives come up, and I was eating gluten and dairy probably a lot more than I should have. Is like a lot of like baked
Yeah.
goods and things like that, and a lot of you know m- more than I'm used to quantities of kind of processed food and sugar and so on.
Mhm.
I certainly don't recommend that. I'm planning on scaling that back. It was definitely just a short-term indulgence for a few days, but I was able to tolerate it, which felt really good because yeah, that showed me that provided it's in moderation and not
Yeah.
all the time, that I
Yeah.
can actually enjoy these things, which was really nice
And get your life
really
back,
nice to have.
right? Be
Yeah.
social, go out with friends and not have to worry about, is there gonna be something for me to eat and that. So that's my question is like how do you feel now maintaining what you've learned and like what are some of the things that you definitely gonna take with you into the future? Because you probably won't need my help anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not. I think for me, it's about just being conscious about the way I'm kind of living my life. If I'm going under a lot of stress, like what can I do about that? Can I, do my mindfulness practice and try and bring that stress down? Can I directly address that stress in some way? And then on the diet side, you know, uh, just being conscious that, for example, I've just been on holiday, probably indulged quite a lot. Like
Mhm.
now, can I bring it back and bring it back to a good baseline. So I think that's last time I had hives after it stopped. I think that's something that I didn't really do. I kind of just jumped back into my previous lifestyle. But this time I'm going to make much more long-term changes. So, for example, for me, I felt like caffeine and alcohol didn't really have a place in my life. It didn't really feel right for me or my body. So I haven't had either of those for 7 months now, and I plan to continue that into the future. Um, for gluten and dairy and sugar, I think is a particularly bad one for me. I think I'm going to try and like limit them, I guess, as
Mhm.
much as I can, particularly the sugar because I have a massive sweet tooth. So I'm always reaching for the sweet treats. So I think if I can try and limit that and just be conscious of my consumption, that'll be a really important step going forwards.
Yeah, awesome. And then just briefly, I want to touch on the fact that we did speak about spiritual stuff because you do seem like
Yeah,
a spiritual guy. Did you come away with any learnings for yourself out of this phase?
yeah, that's a great question actually. I I guess probably just being it comes back to being conscious, trying to do things with my full attention and being mindful in my day-to-day life. I think previously and I still do it. Sometimes I just kind of make decisions and do things without thinking. And I think just kind of being conscious of every action and um, the consequences that those actions could have, whether that be like increasing my stress levels or setting me back in my goals, I think has just allowed me to really improve kind of my decision making, and doing a daily mindfulness practice, as much as I can, just allows you to kind of keep a clear mind.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. What I really treasured as well in following you on your journey is that there was this kind of connection eventually to realizing alignment to your work and
Yeah,
feeling, because for a while you were feeling out of place there, and before our call, you saying that things are working out and you're happy at work, and so I think that all factors in. So I'm really pleased to see that that shifted for you as well, because that would automatically cause some stress in your life, which could exacerbate the healing journey. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, definitely. I think during my period of hives, I was going through a very like stressful time in my professional life. I'd changed jobs, and I didn't really like my first kind of project or my new job, and the people I was working with were quite difficult. But I think I just kind of stuck at it, and now fortunately I've had the opportunity to kind of be in a different environment, and things have just improved so much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, well done.
onwards and upwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, for anybody that might be listening that resonates with your story, do you have any words of wisdom for somebody that might be considering joining the program? Any words of advice that you have for them?
I guess what I would say is to kind of, yeah, try and exhaust all your options, before necessarily just following what you're told to do, um, by the doctors. I think if you're the sort of person who wants to really solve the issue at heart and wants to, find a natural way of healing, and through this journey, I've realized that, not everybody necessarily wants that, and that's fine. If you do just want to take the tablets and take the Zola and so on, that's completely fine. It's a personal choice. But I think if you're the sort of person who's curious about what's really going on and wants to kind of improve your lifestyle and so on, um, I definitely recommend exploring all your options. Keep trying, keep pushing. I really empathize with anybody who's kind of going through hives at the moment, because it's just such a horrible thing, completely ruins your quality of life. And I think also other people don't really realize how much it can affect you, because from other people's perspective, it's like, oh, you just get
Yeah.
a few lumps, get over it. But actually, when you have it, it's just so awful. But I'd say if you are a curious person who kind of wants to find an alternative way, then this program could be something that works for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really hope that it helps somebody out there that might be listening. And well done, Keval, because you really
Thank
put in the
you.
work. I say that to all my clients. I mean, I'm the guide and I can guide you as to what supports the body, but you're the one that puts in the work and you did an amazing job. So, congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your help, Marie.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Keval.